toxic, phony, hypocrite, liar. That's what she is.
Totally different. She would only speak to the audience when the cameras were rolling. As soon as they turned the cameras off, she would not even acknowledge the audience. She would just sit on the couch, basically.
Well, it's certainly, if it was why I was quitting, I would have not come back this year, because everything happened, what you're talking about, is last summer.
For years, Ellen was seen as the symbol of kindness, the safe celebrity who brought laughter, dance breaks, and heartwarming moments into people's living rooms every afternoon. She wasn't edgy or loud. She felt like a comfort zone for viewers who wanted joy without chaos. But that image, the one built so carefully over decades, ended up being her biggest weakness. When things began to crumble, it didn't happen with headlines screaming scandal. It fell apart quietly, story by story, until there was nothing left to protect the illusion. The moment her kindness brand cracked, people realized how fragile it really was. And just like that, it all began. Not with an exposé, not with a secret investigation, but with a single tweet in March 2020. The tweet asked one simple, harmless-sounding question. What are the most shocking stories you've heard about Ellen being mean? That's it. No proof, no screenshots, no setup, just a question. But the internet didn't hesitate. What followed was a tidal wave of stories, and they came fast. People who said they'd worked near her, served her at restaurants, or even just crossed her path for a minute, all started sharing what they claimed were their experiences. A server said Ellen once sent a complaint letter to management because of chipped nail polish, not in the food, but on the server's hand. A Warner Brothers employee said they were fired after holding an elevator door and politely asking which floor she needed. Another former staffer said Ellen snapped just for making eye contact with her.
And honestly, I really did think about not coming back, because it was devastating. Because it started with me. It started with attacks on me and attacking everything that I stand for and believe in and built my career around. I am a kind person. I am a person who likes to make people happy. I am a people pleaser. This is who I am. There must be some truth to it, because it's not stopping.
Those stories hit like shockwaves, not because they were violent or extreme, but because they shattered the picture-perfect idea of the be kind host everyone thought they knew. People began describing Ellen's presence as cold, intimidating, and even humiliating. At first, each story could have been dismissed. After all, celebrities deal with stress, bad service, or miscommunication sometimes. But what made this different was how consistent everything sounded. Different people, different years, different settings. Yet the same tone kept repeating: fear, control, and a clear dislike for anyone who didn't hold status or value to her. That bright daytime smile started to feel like a mask, one cracking right in front of everyone's eyes. Then things escalated fast when former employees from her own show began speaking out. That's when the story shifted from "Ellen is rude" to something way heavier. Multiple people came forward saying the environment behind the scenes was toxic, that some staff were scared to speak up, that managers enforced silence, and that people were punished for taking time off for health or family reasons. BuzzFeed's report wasn't built on random internet rumors. It was backed by producers, writers, and crew who had been there. They had nothing to gain by talking and everything to lose. They described a set where Ellen wasn't just distant, she was feared. Employees said they were told not to approach her, mistakes weren't corrected but punished, and kindness only existed when the cameras were rolling.
All right, we're back with Sean Diddy Combs. Is it Diddy today? Because sometimes you're Puffy and sometimes you're Diddy. Or sometimes you're Daddy. What are you today?
I'm so confused today with it, as long as you say it in a nice way.
And that's when the illusion collapsed, because "Be Kind" wasn't just her slogan. It was her brand's foundation. Once people started believing that message was fake, everything around it fell apart. The laughter didn't sound joyful anymore. It felt forced. The jokes felt awkward. Even the dancing, once her trademark, looked staged and uncomfortable. Audiences began rewatching old moments with fresh eyes, and suddenly, clips that once seemed lighthearted started feeling tense. Like when she'd sharply tease audience members or put guests on the spot. What once read as playful now felt controlling. It wasn't that the behavior was new, it was just finally being seen differently. When Ellen finally addressed it, she did what many in her position do. She gave a careful apology. She expressed regret but avoided taking full responsibility, pointing instead to others in management. She promised that things would change, and for a short time, people wanted to believe it. The show returned, the applause was back, but the energy was gone. The laughter didn't land the same. The warmth disappeared. Ellen looked drained. The spark that once defined her was fading. Viewers could feel it too. Ratings sank, and reruns started filling the gaps. By the time reports said she'd lost over 1 million viewers in just 6 months, it was clear. This wasn't just a temporary PR storm. It was the end of an era for Ellen's kindness.
As you may have heard, this summer there were allegations of a toxic work environment at our show, and then there was an investigation. I learned that things happened here that never should have happened. I take that very seriously, and I want to say I am so sorry to the people who were...
Empire. This was more than bad press. It was reputational collapse. When Ellen finally announced that her show was ending, she tried to frame it as a personal choice, saying she was simply bored, needed a new challenge, and was ready to move on. But nobody was buying that. Not the audience, not the industry, and honestly, not even Ellen herself. She didn't look like someone walking away on her own terms. She looked like someone being quietly pushed out, politely but firmly. After the cameras stopped rolling, she tried to reinvent herself. A documentary here, a small project there, but nothing connected. Eventually, she slipped out of sight, retreating into what looked like quiet retirement. For a moment, it seemed like she'd managed a clean exit, until everything changed with the Diddy situation. Because as soon as that investigation exploded across the headlines, Ellen's name started popping up again. Not as someone accused or charged, but as someone who had been around that world. Old clips resurfaced, showing Ellen joking with Diddy, laughing about his infamous parties, even acknowledging that she'd heard about them. Back then, it all seemed playful. But now, in hindsight, it felt chilling. Then Joe Rogan stirred things up further.
Is that going to be a new thing? Are you going to try to be early?
Yes, I'm trying to be early.
Are you going to be early for my party?
Yes, I am. No.
No.
You know I have to arrive fashionably late.
All right. Not too late, though.
Not too late?
Not too late, please.
What time would you like me there?
I'll tell you later.
Okay.
But not too late, because, you know, once you get there, the party really starts.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
He didn't accuse her of anything. He simply questioned why certain celebrities seemed untouchable. Why do some names get buried while others just vanish from the spotlight? He asked. And people listened. Suddenly, Ellen's silence became its own kind of statement. Because the woman who once built her empire on accountability and kindness wasn't saying a word. Her silence hit differently this time. It didn't feel peaceful, it felt strategic. When someone with power, influence, and years of moral branding suddenly disappears during serious conversations about Hollywood behavior, it makes people wonder. At this point, Ellen's story stopped being about a toxic workplace and started symbolizing something much deeper: the hidden culture of Hollywood itself. The unspoken rules about who gets protected, who takes the fall, and how charm often covers control. Because in that world, silence isn't neutral, especially when it comes from someone who spent years speaking over others. And the truly uneasy part? When you look at Ellen's sudden move overseas, her failed comeback attempts, and her public connections to figures now facing serious scrutiny, it all starts painting a very uncomfortable picture. Nothing criminal, nothing proven, just unsettling. And in Hollywood, discomfort is enough to end a career, because once people stop clapping, the illusion shatters. When Ellen's name started appearing in the same breath as Diddy's, the tone completely changed, not because of evidence, but because perception had shifted. Her silence echoed louder than any denial could.
I'm just so sorry that it's come to this. I really don't know what to say other than this has gone on way, 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 way too long. People have gotten away with murder, and that's what's happening. So we've got to see fairness, and we've got to see justice for all, because right now this is not a fair world. Not at all.
And that silence might be the final note of her once golden legacy. In Hollywood, proximity is everything. Who you hang out with, who you defend, who you joke around with, it all becomes evidence in the court of public opinion. And when Ellen chose silence during Diddy's explosive investigation, that silence spoke volumes. When Diddy was taken into custody and charged, the internet did what it always does. It started digging. Old clips, old interviews, old jokes, everything got pulled back up. And in those archives were several moments where Ellen wasn't just casually chatting with Diddy, but laughing about his wild parties, fancy hotel suites, and late-night scenes. Back then, it all seemed like harmless celebrity banter. But now, with serious allegations of misconduct swirling around Diddy's empire, those old laughs suddenly feel chilling. One clip in particular had people frozen. Diddy joked that the real parties start after midnight, up on the top floors. Ellen didn't react with surprise or confusion. She laughed like she'd heard it all before. And that sense of familiarity hit people the wrong way. Because knowing what's now being alleged about those same parties, that shared laughter feels eerie. Joe Rogan was one of the first major voices to say what many were already thinking. He didn't accuse Ellen of being involved in anything, and he didn't claim she knew details. What he questioned was the silence. Why were so many other celebrities rushing to make public statements, distancing themselves, while Ellen completely vanished? Why did her name seem untouchable? Rogan described it as Hollywood's protection bubble, where certain figures are too valuable, too powerful, too connected to ever face real scrutiny. And people couldn't help but agree that Ellen fit that mold.
I'm sorry, that's embarrassing and everything, but let that be a lesson to you, because you think
It is.
you think nobody's watching you and you just need to be a good person just because you want to be a good person. You go sit in that Ellen jail over there right now.
She wasn't just a talk show host, she was a gatekeeper. Someone who could make or break careers with a single segment, who controlled access with a smile. So when someone with that much influence goes completely quiet during a storm like this, fans don't assume innocence. They assume strategy. That's why Ellen's sudden move to the UK raised so many eyebrows. Officially, it was framed as a personal choice, escaping politics, chasing peace, slowing down. But the timing couldn't have looked worse. She left right as Diddy's legal troubles escalated and more celebrity names started circling online. It might have been coincidence, or maybe it wasn't. But in Hollywood, timing is everything. And in this case, Ellen's exit didn't feel like a retreat for peace. It looked like a calculated escape. Fair or not, it looked exactly like an exit. Hollywood thrives on neat endings, and Ellen's life after her show has been one long, carefully managed fade-out. No interviews, no deep conversations, no messy confrontations, just quiet, picture-perfect posts of countryside scenes, animals, and peaceful living. It's the art of rebranding by disappearing. But here's the problem. Disappearing doesn't work when the internet refuses to move on. As the Diddy headlines kept coming, people started drawing new connections between old dots. Ellen's long-reported control issues, her sharp management style, the strict, don't speak unless spoken to energy described by former staffers. People began remembering the Ellen stare, that chilling look that made employees feel intimidated without her saying a single word. When you line up those traits beside what's now being discussed about other powerful figures who allegedly ruled through fear and loyalty, it gets uncomfortable. Not the same, not identical, but close enough to make people think twice. That's how the rumors spread so quickly. Not because there was proof, but because the public had already lost trust. Once people believe you're capable of being unkind, it's a short leap to believing you might be capable of worse. And Ellen didn't do much to stop that perception from growing. Even her Netflix stand-up special felt more like damage control than reflection. Instead of addressing the serious claims about her workplace, she downplayed it all as a misunderstanding, as if it were just one bad tweet that spiraled out of control. But audiences knew better. They remembered the stories, the employees, the testimonies. Instead of showing empathy, Ellen leaned into a tone that felt defensive, even mocking at times. She joked about being too honest for Hollywood, about people being too sensitive. For some, that confidence was admirable, but for many others, it felt manipulative. Like she was rewriting her own story instead of owning it. That's where she lost her footing. Self-awareness isn't accountability, and the reviews reflected that perfectly. Half the viewers saw a woman trying to move on. The other half saw a performance, a carefully written closing statement, not a confession. Ellen's downfall wasn't one big explosion. It was slow erosion. Years of behavior, whispered stories, and unaddressed criticism piling up until her image couldn't hold the weight anymore. And then Joe Rogan reopened the conversation, reminding everyone that Ellen wasn't an isolated case. She was part of a A system where influence protects influence, where smiles mask control, and where silence becomes a survival tool. That's what made people stop clapping. Because Ellen's brand of kindness suddenly looked like just another Hollywood act. Even if she never broke any laws, her behavior echoed the same arrogance that allowed others to cross much darker lines unchecked. The belief that being powerful means being untouchable, that kindness can be packaged while cruelty hides behind closed doors. But history always catches up. Power fades. Stories resurface. And now, Ellen's legacy isn't hers to curate anymore. It's being rewritten by former employees, resurfaced clips, and the collective memory of a culture that feels betrayed. The harsh truth? Ellen isn't feared for a scandal. She's fading into irrelevance. Remembered not for her dancing or laughter, but for her silence when it mattered most. Silence hits differently when people are asking questions. It doesn't feel calm anymore. It feels like a statement. And that's exactly where Ellen DeGeneres finds herself now. The biggest question isn't whether she's guilty of crimes or deserves legal punishment. It's something far more complicated. Something that exposes how power in Hollywood really works. The real question is this: why does Ellen keep surviving when others don't? Because if you look closely, her story doesn't follow the usual downfall pattern. She didn't get canceled and vanish in shame. She exited gracefully, sold her properties, moved overseas, avoided interviews, and kept full control of her image while the people who once worked under her were left behind dealing with the fallout. That's not luck, that's leverage. Hollywood doesn't protect people because they're good-hearted. It protects them because they're useful, connected, or too risky to cross. And Ellen, after decades in the spotlight, became all three. She wasn't just a talk show host, she was a brand, a corporate favorite, a gatekeeper sitting right in the middle of celebrities, advertisers, and media executives. She knew everyone and everything. The rumors say she knew plenty of industry secrets, the kind that give people quiet power without ever needing to say a word. That's why Joe Rogan's comments hit so hard. He didn't accuse her of anything specific. He just asked what everyone else was too scared to. Why does the outrage stop at certain names? Why do some people get dragged through the mud instantly while others, like Ellen, seem protected by an invisible shield? And the truth isn't mysterious, it's fear, it's self-preservation. Because in Hollywood, silence often means survival. Ellen might have lost her audience's trust, but she still held enough influence to make people tread carefully. You could see it unraveling during her final seasons. The fake laughter, the lack of spark, the obvious emotional distance. It didn't look like burnout. It looked like resentment. She couldn't grasp why the audience turned against her when, in her mind, she'd earned a lifetime pass. That's what made her Netflix special so strange. It wasn't a comeback. It was a plea disguised as comedy, a way to ask for forgiveness without ever admitting fault. She played the victim, not the leader, framing herself as misunderstood instead of responsible. Some fans sympathized, but most saw right through it. They didn't want jokes. They wanted accountability, and when they didn't get it, the silence grew louder, especially when Diddy's situation started unfolding. Suddenly, Ellen's quietness didn't feel peaceful anymore. It felt calculated. Because timing matters. In Hollywood, silence is communication. And when someone who built a brand on speaking truth suddenly refuses to speak at all, people assume there's something worth hiding. Ellen once made a career out of cornering guests, digging for secrets, and exposing people on live television, laughing as she did it. But now that the questions are aimed at her, she's choosing privacy. And that double standard doesn't sit well with anyone. What makes it all worse is how carefully the industry dances around her name now. Major outlets barely touch the Ellen Diddy overlap. Reporters sidestep it entirely. No one speculates, no one presses. It's treated like radioactive territory, and that only deepens suspicion. Because in Hollywood, when something isn't true, it usually gets denied loudly. But when something feels too close to home, it gets buried quietly. The internet doesn't just notice things, it dissects them. It studies tone, body language, timing, and silence like evidence. Unlike the traditional media machine, the internet doesn't wait for permission to form opinions or connect dots. It doesn't need an exclusive report or a headline to decide who's guilty or innocent in the court of public perception. It simply observes behavior. It watches who speaks, who hides, and who pretends nothing's happening. And in Ellen's case, hiding doesn't read as peaceful anymore. It reads as strategic. That's why her entire legacy feels suspended in limbo. There's no real redemption arc, no deep self-reflection, no genuine reckoning. Just distance, just retreat. And retreat doesn't fix reputations, it freezes them at their lowest point. Because when you vanish without addressing what happened, you don't erase the story. You just let everyone else write it for you. Meanwhile, the entertainment landscape has completely changed. The world Ellen once ruled, daytime television, glossy celebrity interviews, choreographed moments of charm, has been replaced by something raw and unpredictable. Audiences now want vulnerability, not perfection. They want truth, not rehearsed niceness. Influencers live stream tears, creators show their flaws, and people trust messy authenticity over polished control. And Ellen? She became a symbol of that old, fading Hollywood era. The one where power smiled for the camera but refused to explain itself. That era is ending. And maybe that's the real reason this story just won't die down. Because Ellen isn't just Ellen anymore. She's a mirror of the system people have grown tired of. A system where kindness is marketed, cruelty is disguised as management, and consequences are optional if you're high enough up the ladder. Her silence doesn't just frustrate people, it reminds them how easily the powerful escape accountability. And even though she hasn't been accused of any crimes, the way she's handled everything feels telling. Because the same patterns people are recognizing across Hollywood, the privilege, the selective outrage, the quiet immunity, they all seem to echo in her story too. It's not about whether she's guilty, it's about what she represents. She represents control wrapped in charm. She represents the comfort of old media, where everything was scripted and nothing got questioned. But that comfort doesn't sell anymore. Today's audience sees the cracks, the contradictions, the small details that don't add up, and they talk about them non-stop. And when the internet starts talking, it doesn't stop. It pulls up clips, digs through archives, finds interviews, timestamps, and receipts. It rewatches old jokes and wonders what they really meant. It plays moments back in slow motion and spots things the world missed before. That's what's happening to Ellen's legacy right now. It's being rewatched, reinterpreted, redefined. She used to be the one holding the microphone, pressing guests into uncomfortable corners, exposing others' secrets for laughs. But now that the microphone has turned toward her, she's vanished. She wants privacy, space, time, and the internet isn't buying it. Because when you've built your empire on calling other people out, staying silent when it's your turn looks like hypocrisy, not healing. Even worse, her silence isn't happening in isolation. It's happening in a moment when audiences are craving honesty more than ever. When other celebrities are publicly owning their mistakes, addressing controversy head-on, or showing vulnerability, Ellen is nowhere to be seen. Not one interview, not one clarification, just curated Instagram posts of animals and sunsets. Pretty, peaceful, and completely detached from the chaos happening around her. That's why people feel uneasy. Because when someone once known as the moral compass of television suddenly becomes a ghost during one of Hollywood's darkest cultural reckonings, it doesn't feel like peace. It feels like calculation. Whether it's fair or not, perception has power, and right now, Ellen's silence is doing all the talking. And let's be real, timing matters. The internet has perfect memory. It remembers that her quiet exit from Hollywood lined up neatly with a wave of massive scandals involving figures she had publicly supported, laughed with, or praised. Even though she hasn't been accused of anything directly, the optics don't look great. And in the world of fame, optics are everything. Because when people believe you stood by those who fell, when they see you avoid every conversation, when they realize your brand was built on accountability yet you now refuse to engage, it doesn't matter what's true. The narrative writes itself, and Ellen's narrative right now feels like one of distance, avoidance, and denial. That's why the phrase, "the internet never forgets," isn't just a saying, it's a warning. Every silence, every reaction, every absence gets archived. Her fans once defended her fiercely, but even they're running out of words. They can't explain away why the woman who spent years demanding openness from others suddenly refuses to give any herself. And that's the haunting part. Because whether she realizes it or not, Ellen's legacy is being rewritten in real time. It's no longer in her control. It's being pieced together by clips, interviews, podcasts, think pieces, and endless online threads. Former employees, journalists, and internet historians are doing what Hollywood wouldn't: preserving the full picture. So now she's remembered less for her dancing, laughter, and inspirational moments, and more for what came after: the silence, the avoidance, the timing. She's not viewed as the be kind figure anymore. She's seen as the exception, the one who slipped through, the one who smiled while others paid the price. And that's not the kind of reputation you fix with a comeback tour or a Netflix special. It's the kind that lingers, quietly, endlessly, like an unanswered question. So maybe that's what this is really about. Maybe it's not about guilt or innocence, but about transparency versus silence. Maybe the internet's obsession with Ellen isn't personal, it's symbolic, because she stands for everything people are rejecting about old Hollywood: the secrecy, the power imbalance, the selective morality. Her downfall isn't a tragedy, it's a reflection, and the public's reaction isn't cruelty, it's exhaustion. People are done applauding systems that hide behind charm and profit off of fake morality. So what do you think? Is Ellen just another case of bad timing, the target of an endless internet echo chamber? Or does her silence speak louder than any statement ever could? Do you think Hollywood still shields her from scrutiny? Or is this just the calm before another storm waiting to break? Drop your thoughts below. I really do read them all. And if you enjoyed this deep dive, make sure to like, share, and subscribe for more investigations into the stories Hollywood doesn't want you to hear, the influencer scandals that shake the internet, and the secrets behind fame's perfect facade. Because trust me, this story is far from over. And knowing how fast the internet moves, the next update, it's probably going to be even messier.